All right. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the September meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission. At this time, I'll ask our executive director to read into the record the public disclaimer and to do the roll call, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Notice of the September meeting of the Real Estate Commission, including date, time, and location, has been noticed on the Tennessee Real Estate Commission's website since November 3rd, 2022. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since Friday, September 8th, with a revised agenda posted on Monday, September 11th. Individuals who wish to make a public comment on an item listed on the posted agenda during the scheduled public comment period will need to sign in on the provided sign-in sheet or by placing their name in the chat box online. It is requested that comments be limited to 3 minutes out of respect for other speakers. At this time, I will call the roll. Commissioner Diaz. Vice Chair Ferris. Commissioner Moffitt. Commissioner Begley.
Here.
Commissioner Torbett.
We'll be arriving late.
Commissioner Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Tucker.
Here.
Commissioner Gahn.
We'll be arriving late as
In the event when Commissioner Torbett and Commissioner Gahn arrive, we'll seat them at that time. Thank you.
time. I'll ask Commissioner Smith to lead us in the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for this time that we can come together as leaders of our state. Guide us as we make decisions and guide us that we make good decisions and give us the wisdom and the knowledge to share those appropriately. We ask that you watch over us, watch over our country, and we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioners have had an opportunity to review the agenda for this meeting. Is there any changes to the agenda?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Ferris, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. You also got approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes by Mr. Ferris, seconded by Ms. Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda says public comment period related to items on the agenda. Is that you, Ms. Matlock? No? Okay.
I don't believe we have any public comments at this time. However, I would like to acknowledge that Commissioner Torbett is here.
Is there anything that needs to be said or a motion to close the comment period, or can we just move along? Thank you. All right, that brings us to informal appearances. Ms. Baker, do we have candidate A?
Yes. Yes, we have Mr. Zolomon with his principal broker, Gary Baker. No relation. They are before us. Mr. Zolomon has passed the affiliate broker exam and is seeking to receive his license.
For all the candidates that are appearing before us today, at this time, Mr. Baker and Mr. Zolomon, if you'll unmute your microphones. Mr. Zolomon will have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes on what brings him before us today for our consideration.
If I may interject for just a moment,
Sure.
there is a theft charge under $500.
Thank you. And then after that, Mr. Baker will be allowed to speak on Mr. Zolomon's behalf. That'll be true for all the candidates today. You will speak first, and then your sponsoring broker will be able to speak after that. Okay, sir.
I'm going to recuse myself from this case. He's in my office.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Zalman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. The floor is yours. Please go ahead and tell us your story and what brings you before us today.
Absolutely. So during that time of my life, 2015, 16, 17, I was pretty much lost. I was on drugs at the time, and, drugs take away any inhibitions or wisdom or thinking. And during that time, I walked into Walmart and walked out with stuff that didn't belong to me and did get apprehended. Since that time, I have completed probation. That's been 6 years ago that everything's been completed. To ensure that doesn't happen again, I have really gotten involved with my church and a closer relationship with God. I've also started a nonprofit where I talk to the kids in Southwest Virginia about the love of Jesus and that they don't have to become their parents, which in that county there are so many of the parents that are on drugs, and, it just passes on down to the kids. So I just make sure that that's something that they know, that they have someone that loves them unconditionally. They may be going through. One reason that I'm wanting to get my license is to assist in what I currently do, which is working for Patterson Homes, new custom home builder, and that will help me to assist customers to find land, in addition to becoming a buyer's agent for one of the realtors in the office. And I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak, my story and everything that's been going on. And I'm excited to hopefully get this started today.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Zalman? I hear none. Mr. Baker, it's your turn. Tell us why you would like Mr. Zalman to be a part of your firm.
Well, he's, like you said, he works for Patterson Homes, which is, we're in one big building, and I've watched him over the last few years, how he deals with customers and everything, and this was a real big surprise to me when he kind of said, you need to write a letter for me. And I asked him what for, and he told me, and I thought, well, that wasn't on my bucket list, but other than that, I mean, he's a really good guy. I mean, I would have never thought this of him, that he had been in this kind of trouble before. But he's just a good, moral guy, and I'd like to have him on our team. I mean, I think he'd be a big asset to us. He's a big asset to Patterson Homes, so that's why I'm here talking with him.
Questions for Mr. Baker? All right. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
I got a motion to approve by Mr. Gwynn, seconded by Mr. Moffitt. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion carries 7 with 1 abstention. Mr. Bakley abstains. Congratulations, Mr. Zalman, and good luck. You're free
Thank you so much.
You're free to stay on the call and listen, or you're free to go about your day, whatever you choose.
All right. Thank you all so much.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care now. All right. Ms. Baker, candidate B.
Next, we have Ms. Peggy Marcos with Principal Broker Kathy Armstrong with Heritage Homes. She is before us because she has a California restricted license.
Ms. Marcos, you saw how it went with Mr. Zalman, so I'll turn the floor. Let's turn the floor over to you and tell us your story.
Well, about 25 years ago, I was in a home that wasn't safe and healthy for me. So I left, and I had no assistance and resources available. I went to the county office, and they said because I wasn't pregnant, I couldn't get any state assistance, which led me to make decisions that I am remorseful for. But my intention was just to survive and get a roof on my head. So when it came time to do my California real estate license, I I don't believe I was ready to maybe talk about it. At the same time, I had a healthcare management job for over 20 years, and it never got in the way before as far as those previous arrests when I was 19 or 20. So I put no, and the state of California didn't like that very much, so they restricted my license. As far as now, I've been a taxpaying honest citizen for the past 25 years, and I just moved to Tennessee and look forward to working here, hopefully.
Any questions for Ms. Marcos? Commissioner Smith, you got any?
I was just curious, what does restricted license mean in California?
It pretty much means that for 10 years, they note that you didn't put yes to have you been arrested, from what I'm understanding, and I put no when they asked me the question because it was when I was very young, so I wasn't privy to the cutoff date as far as like when does it matter, when it doesn't. Since I was young, I put no, but now I know it's anything over the age of 18. So that's, I guess because I didn't disclose it is why they did that.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Gwynn.
On your first page of the form, I'm a little confused. It says, have you taken the exam for license? And you check no and then put only in California. What does that mean? What does that mean? Only in California?
So I only did the test in the state of California, and I just wanted to clarify that. I have not proceeded with anything further in Tennessee because I was told this is my process in order to get my license here.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, hearing none. Ms. Armstrong, please tell us.
Thank you all for the opportunity. I met with, Peggy called me on the phone and she was searching a broker.
Sorry,
and
excuse me.
Excuse
me, Ms. Armstrong, if you could tilt that camera so we can see you a little bit better.
I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry. When Peggy called me, she was searching a broker and gave me a brief outline of what she was looking for and what the issue was. Then I offered to have her come into the office, and we sat and talked for about an hour and a half. I was very impressed with Peggy's honesty, and she explained to me everything that had happened, and she was very remorseful. We had a long chat. I truly believe that she will be an asset to our office. She's just a very honest person and told me a lot of things that she didn't really need to let someone who she had first met in on her life so well. And I was very impressed with her, and I think she's got great ethics and great morals, and I would love to have her in my office.
Any questions for Ms. Armstrong?
Ms. Armstrong, this is Commissioner Ferris. Thanks for your time. And Peggy, you can answer this as well. How did you come to know of each other and be introduced? And why did you think to call Ms. Armstrong Peggy? And was there a relationship there with some friends, or just any kind of context there?
We had never met, and she's new to the area. I think she's got a couple friends who, just by happenstance, ended up in our area also, which has worked out great for Peggy. But we don't have any mutual friends. She called me and she said she was having difficulty finding a broker because nobody would answer their phone. And she was impressed that I actually answered when she called me. So it's amazing how people get work done here with not answering the phone.
Thank you.
But
yeah.
So, note to brokers, answer the phone.
Yeah.
Rule number one.
All right. Any other questions for either Ms. Armstrong or Ms.
I move to approve.
Marcos? Got a motion to approve, seconded by Ms. Tucker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, congratulations and good luck.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Candidate C, Ms. Baker.
Thank you. If I may, I would like to acknowledge our newest commissioner, Mr. Mike Gahn. He is now present. Do you have any words before we proceed? We are in the informal section of the meeting within our informal appearances.
I got right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Gahn.
All right.
Next, we have Mr. William Tyler Holt with Principal Broker Walter James Combs with East Tennessee Realty, I believe, and he is appearing before us on a theft charge. Mr. Holt has taken and passed the affiliate broker exam.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Holt and Mr. Combs. You kind of saw how this went, so I'll go ahead and turn the floor over to Mr. Holt, and he can tell us his story.
Okay, so can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. I'm not sure we can see you. Where are you at on the camera?
Right.
There you are. Thank you.
So for years, it's kind of similar to candidate A, right? So for years, I struggled with drug addiction. You know, growing up, I pretty much had to just raise myself. I had no parents around, no guidance, so I just had to kind of figure things out on my own. And you know, so that led me down a bad path. I led myself down a bad path. But you know, somewhere in there, I had my daughter, and I started trying to change, and I didn't get it together right away. And I found God, and I still didn't get it together right away, but things started to change inside of me. And I noticed that the consequences for my actions had changed. Like, you know, like God was trying to make sure I got it together. And I ended up going to rehab 3 times. And on the 3rd time, which was 2 years ago almost, I finally got clean. I finally participated in therapy and, you know, completed the program. That was after going to jail and having the theft charge. So since then, I have paid off my restitution. I've completed probation. I'm currently re-enrolled in real estate class. I have done it and taken the test before, but I thought I should just, you know, freshen up on it just in case. But I've been working as an ISA since January, and I've, you know, I feel like I've been an asset to our team, and I go overboard to make sure I operate with integrity and, you know, just do the right thing. And I'm just asking that after everything I've been through, I know I probably don't deserve it. I've done a lot of things that I regret doing, but I'm hoping that you will just give me a chance to prove that I'm not that person anymore, because I've definitely changed as a human being.
Questions for Mr. Holt? Hearing none. Mr. Combs, it's your turn to explain to us why you would like Mr. Holt on your team.
Yeah, so I met Tyler 3.5 years ago before all this, and Tyler came to, I think, when he first tried to apply his license, and that was before he kind of got his life together. And honestly, back then I probably wouldn't have joined this meeting. I'm a big believer in everyone deserves a second chance, and I think that everyone on this call has skeletons in their closet, and I know I do. And you know, I think that everyone gets an opportunity, and what they do with an opportunity is an important thing that they do. And I know I wouldn't be here today. I mean, I went through many things in my life and a lot of adversity, and I think that, you know, he has. I mean, honestly, when he came back in January, he didn't seem like the same person. And you know, the good thing that he has is he's you know, marrying his previous wife, who's his daughter's mom, and she's a very godly woman. And his team leader, Jake Morris, is a really good guy. So I think you'll have a good positive influence. I think the people you surround yourself play a pivotal role. And I've got a similar upraising as him. And so I know what real estate's done for my life and how it's changed my life. And I hope to impact him. And I hope that you guys give him that opportunity as well.
Any questions for Mr. Combs? Hearing none, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Ms. Torbett and seconded by Ms. Tucker to approve this candidate. If there's no further, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Holt, and good luck.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good
Thanks,
day.
guys.
Ms. Baker, candidate D.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Gregory O'Neill with Principal Broker Todd Smith. Mr. O'Neill has taken and passed the timeshare salesperson exam, and he is before us today with a conspiracy to distribute mixture cocaine.
Mr. O'Neill, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please tell us your story.
Yes, sir. First, I want to thank y'all for this opportunity. In 2011, just made a mistake. I'm not going to make any excuses. In 2011, was with some of my friends and ex-friends, and made a mistake. And I have definitely moved on from there. I have kept different, of course, my jobs went from starting from a front desk at a hotel resort in the area to move over to management for the Collier family in the Sevierville area. And during those times, I had so many people come to me to tell me I would do so good doing timeshare in the area there. And one person in particular from Blue Green for a year now has really kept calling me, telling me to come do this. Like I said, I passed the exam. I had actually took the real estate class before then, but I knew that it was going to be, I didn't know what all I had to go through. So I decided to do the timeshare. And like, again, I passed it. I moved on. I put my past in the past and just trying to do the best I can, dealing with, that issue in the past and trying to do the best I can to make me a good living. That's all I'm trying to do here.
Questions for Mr. O'Neill? Ms. Matlock, I do have a question. The paperwork that we see on the iPad seems like there was questions that weren't answered. Is that a version problem that we're having with what's on the iPads, or Ms. Baker?
I'm sorry, will you repeat that, please?
I'm looking at the paperwork that we have for this candidate, and there just seems to be that there are some questions that hadn't been answered.
Okay.
And I was just wanting to make sure we have the correct document from him, that there isn't a completed form out there that we're not seeing.
To my knowledge, what has been submitted and on your iPad is what we have.
He just didn't fill out Section A, it looks to me like. But
But he's attached the court record, so I would say that's
it's a wash.
Yeah.
Can you speak into your mic,
Sorry.
please, Ms. Torbett?
If it's more than 10 years, is that still something we see? Does it depend on what the conviction is?
It's 10 years the latest at the end of the so for here we're looking at the end of, hold on, let me, duration that puts us within the time period. So it's the latest in time. So either the conviction, date of incarceration, or date of probation, which puts them within the 10-year time frame.
All right, Mr. Smith, please tell us about why you would like Mr. O'Neill to be part of your firm.
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity. Greg, about a year ago, and he mentioned it here, Greg was a sales leader at a ATV dealership in the Knoxville area, and he sold one of my representatives, a longtime representative, an ATV, and she was very impressed. Her and her husband were very impressed with not only the sales process and experience, but the follow-up and customer service. And she basically kept calling him, as Greg mentioned, and then come to find out when we started the application process, one of my another broker at a Blue Green office in Sevierville, Miss Phyllis Sissom, her family has known Greg for most of his life and love him to death and highly recommend him as well. And, you know, in talking through, he's been very transparent about, you know, this that happened 10, 12, many years ago, and been forthright about all the details. And, you know, and looking at his work experience, you know, he spent over 6 years with Collier Hotels, the Brett Collier family being a local family. And, you know, anyone that would spend 6 years with that family's got to be a hard worker in my book. And, of course, with Brooks Brothers and now being a sales leader at the ATV dealership, you know, he's got an excellent work history from the short time through training here. You know, he's done everything we ask him to do, all the education, all the training, all the process that we follow. And then in addition to that, you know, we've got an employee hub where you go and watch basically on your own extra courses that are recorded about the Blue Green product and so forth. And he did. Now, I have employees that haven't done a handful of those courses, and on his own, he did 30 of those courses. So that shows what, you know, how he's wired, and that he goes the extra mile, and that he wants it badly. And we feel like we want to, back him because of that. And then also, I just mentioned too, being a principal broker at this resort, that's not my only responsibility. I'm the sales director, so day to day, 5-6 days a week, I'm on our sales floor, and I'm not just a broker because they needed a principal broker, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm the principal broker and sales director on the sales floor. I'm going to be specifically directly responsible for his progress here at the resort as he grows within Blue Green, and I think he'll have a bright future based on his work history the last several years.
Questions for Mr. Smith? Hearing none, is there a motion? I got a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Ms. Torbett, to approve this candidate. Any further discussion? Since you're ready to vote. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Neil O'Neill, and good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, good morning. If I could just kindly remind everyone to speak into their microphones when we're talking, because I can hear you, but we won't be able to hear anyone on the recording.
Next item of business is the waiver request. Ms. Baker, tell us about this one.
Thank you. We have Mr. Wendell Sturdivant. He is seeking a waiver of testing for hardship due to medical care. You will find his statement on your iPads.
He testing to be an affiliate or to be a principal broker or a broker?
It's my understanding that he is required to retest. He is closing his real estate firm and is wanting to join eXp Realty. And since his license has expired, he is needing to retest, and so he is seeking a waiver for that retest requirement.
When did he first get his license?
You will have to look that up. Just a moment, please. Okay. It is April 19th, 2012.
That was an affiliate or a broker?
It's my understanding it's an affiliate broker's license, and his license expired last April 18th, 2022.
Thoughts?
Does anybody remember if we have waived a test in recent months? I don't recall. We've waived some fees and some fines.
And I guess since they're asking us to do it, we have the authority to do it if we want to.
It is before the commission, yes.
I mean,
it's kind of statutory to have to retest after your license expires. I don't think we can ignore that and move on. It's not a rule of the commission.
It's a rule.
It's a rule?
So the rule is 1260-01-.21(3), and it states if a license is expired for more than 1 year, then that individual must reapply for licensure, meet current education requirements, and pass all required examinations.
Motion to deny this request, seconded by Mr. Moffitt. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I sense people are ready to vote, so let's vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny this request? Yes. Is there? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
no.
So that motion carries. Motion to deny carries 7-2, with Commissioner Torbett and Commissioner Ferris. Next item of business goes to our Education Director, Mr. White. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Glad to see everybody this morning. I've had an opportunity to review all the new courses and providers and instructors before you today. Fairly lengthy agenda. I would support that they be approved by this commission. Notice that there's a page in good yes, but I believe the last few D numbers. So regardless, S1 through C42, I present for your approval this morning.
Commissioners want to pull any courses for discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Gwynn.
This is a course called Solar Alliance. This would be, I don't know, it's on page 3, about 3/4 of the way down. It said need approval on there. It's about understanding solar energy.
That would be course S24 for reference.
Where's that number? Yes, S24. Is that approved?
No, Commissioner, I believe the instructor, Ann Brock, who is the new instructor for this course, she's geared to teach this course. She has excellent background. I believe I have her on the.
So the need approval is for the instructor, not for the course.
That's correct.
Okay.
Under her name is need approval, but it is a new provider. In red, they will be number 1891.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Further questions? Is there a motion?
Yes. Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Ms. Torbett, seconded by Commissioner Bagley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Wyatt, I believe you got instructors for us also.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I have 2 instructors to present to you this morning, also on your iPads, and I find them to comport with the rules and regs for becoming licensed instructors.
Questions for Mr. White regarding these candidates?
Move to approve these candidates.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Ferris, seconded by Commissioner Tucker. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir. Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And now we move along to Ms. Baker, who is making her debut and her first report as Executive Director of the Commission. welcome, Ms. Baker, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Good morning. I am so very happy to be serving Tennessee in this role. So thank you all for allowing me and selecting me to be the executive director of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission. Over the past 2 weeks, I have met the entire team. They are phenomenal folks to work with, and I'm looking forward to not only working with them, but you all as well. With that being said, the Tennessee Real Estate Commission has approved the proposed rules and at the rulemaking hearing, and there will be a rulemaking hearing on November, the proposed rules were proposed and a hearing conducted on November 9th. The rules were filed with the Secretary of State on August 25th, 2023, and will become effective November 23rd, 2023. The rules have been filed as rulemaking hearing rules and will be approved within 90 days of the filing. And there will also be a hearing next month, and we'll have more details about that in October's meeting. Also, due to time constraints, TREC staff will not be able to attend the Arello conference in Montreal. So we do apologize about that. However, we are committed to attending the conference not only in April of next year, but later in the fall as well of 2024. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Baker?
Glad you're here.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the legal consent report, but we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break and we can adjourn and return at 9:15 a.m. We are in recess at the moment. Thank you. And we're going to begin our legal and consent report. I'm going to go ahead and read the number of cases, each case number that's been pulled by commissioners for further discussion. Those cases are 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, 27, 33, 34, 35, 38, 44, and 58. Are there any other cases commissioners wish to pull besides that group? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Second.
Motion is to approve council's recommendation of the legal consent agenda, minus the cases that were read into the record. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. All right, so I got case 12 as the first one up.
Chairman Diaz, can you repeat who made the motion in the second, please?
Got the motion from Ms. Smith, seconded by Ms. Bagley.
Thank you.
Mr. Bagley, sorry. It'd be Ms. All right, so go ahead. I got case 12 for discuss. Is that right, or is that just me?
I did that one too. I pulled 12 also.
Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Okay. I was concerned on this one when it said the buyers entered the home prior to closing, stayed for the weekend, and removed items from the home. And then it goes on to say that they thought that they had given permission for the lockbox code prior to closing. So I'm concerned that we have someone that is given possession without authority to a property prior to closing.
I guess my question is along the same line. Is there anything in the record that shows the sellers giving permission for the buyers to enter the property that way?
The complainant agent stated that there was a conversation about allowing the potential buyers to enter the home to drop something off, and then they were supposed to leave, is what the complainant said was supposed to happen. However, when the complainant arrived over the weekend, walked into the home and found there was a family there. They were eating lunch. So
they were eating lunch?
They were, yes.
Okay. Surprise.
Correct.
Man.
I guess I had two concerns. That was my first concern. And then my second one was that while they were working, they realized that there were issues with the property. So I'm concerned that was there a property acceptance? Was there an inspection? I'm just curious.
Well, they did. They terminated the contract, so I assume they didn't close on it.
And let me see if it references I believe that there in contract signed, but that it was perhaps waiting on the inspection.
We have no indication that the agent was present when the buyers came to the property to.
Commissioner Smith, I pulled this one also, and one of my concerns was it states that there was some things removed from the house by the people also.
That was part of the complaint. Yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Bagley.
I'll make a motion to cite these folks for $1,000 penalty and to open up a complaint against the principal broker.
That the charge of failure to exercise reasonable skill and care?
Yes.
All right. So I have a motion by Commissioner Bagley to fine the respondent $1,000 for failure to exercise reasonable skill and care, seconded by Commissioner Ferris. Any other further discussion? Mr. Gwynn.
Are they trying to say that the fact that they were let into the house is the reason they discovered that the house did not have water?
I think that's what the respondent was trying to argue. Yes, sir. There were some, from what I can tell of the complaint, there were some discussions about there being repairs needed. I don't know if it got as specific as what the respondent is saying it turned out to be.
So the fact that they were in there, they dropped the contract, right?
Correct.
And who is saying that? It sounds like they're saying that if they hadn't gone into the house, let's call it illegally, without the code, then they would not have discovered that the house had no water and would have closed and then had a problem. Am I reading that wrong?
Respondents are arguing that it was only because of this early arrival or move-in, however you want to characterize it, that they discovered this issue with the well. The complainants have, and I scrolled down through here, the only thing that was left was a final walkthrough. The complainants alleged that there were problems with water or with the plumbing, but that it certainly was not that there was no water or that the well was completely dry. The complainants are implying that, or the seller, not the complainant agent, the sellers were concerned that it was the respondent buyers that damaged the plumbing while they were in the home unsupervised for a weekend. There could be some liability going between sellers and the buyers about that. What is undisputed is that the buyers or potential buyers were let into the home unsupervised for more than
prior to closing, correct?
For more than just dropping something off and leaving.
So was the inspection, it says after a well inspection was done, it was found that the well was dry. When was the inspection done? After?
It's not clear from the respondent's response when that was done.
I mean, I think the well being dry is a curiosity. The act of letting their clients into the property before closing is what's at question here, in my view, anyway.
That's the implication, is that they ran the well dry.
I don't think so.
I think we've got two issues. We're voting on, did they let the people in before they were supposed to? That's the vote right now. Is that correct, Chairman?
That's the motion that's on the floor, yes.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying they did the right thing letting them in early, but it sounds like the complaint is if they hadn't let them in early, then they would have closed on the house.
They still
That's
might
the
have had a
impli-
final walkthrough.
Well, it sounds like, that's the inspection that discovered that there was no water. It seemed like it should have been done before they even got to that point. But it sounds like that they went into the house, had lunch, or whatever they were doing, and turned the water on, and there's no water. So how do you not know that before you get to that point?
And
that's another.
But at least the home inspectors that I've been present for, when they're inspecting the house, they turn on the water and they let it run for a while. Like they turn on the water in the tubs and the sinks, and they let it run because in all of their reports, and I've witnessed this, they say after copious amounts of water have been allowed to run, they didn't, and they make their observations, whatever their observations are. So I have a feeling that over the course of just a normal home inspection, depending on the inspector, that they would have detected that the well was not suited for the long-term service of the new buyer, of the new homeowner. But that's an assumption. I don't have anything in a record that says that.
And Steve, my motion is because of the agent. It's a no. You cannot let people in the house unsupervised. They could have gone in there with the agent, turned all the water on, stayed an hour, 2, 3. That's fine, and figured it out. But they can't give people access to property. So the only thing we're judging here is
the
did
access.
this agent do anything wrong, and the principal broker, did they supervise them correctly? Between the buyer and seller, if they're all telling the truth, that's not up to us so much as the agent.
Still, just the fact that they didn't document the permission being granted for access prior to closing, even if they wanted to stay for a weekend or whatever, permission has to be given and has to be part of the record. And if that's missing from the file, well, their submissions and their response, then we have to assume that it doesn't exist. So is there any further discussion?
Just to follow up with what Steve is saying is the buyer if depending on when this well inspection took place, if it took place in the 9th hour there, they could file a complaint against their agent and say they didn't recommend us do a well test during our inspection period. There could be cause for not just one count of reasonable skill and care, possibly 2, depending on if there was cause the agent had for doing a well test or not, and the agent may not have known. But it's
Well, the last sentence I was confused about too. Principal broker states the seller has so far not responded to the request to sign the mutual release. Is that talking about the earnest money?
And the contract. The mutual release is the mutual release of the purchase and sale agreement.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's a separate conversation because they got statutory responsibilities there that we're all familiar with in terms of earnest money. That's not what is before us today. So is there any more discussion?
We review the motion. I've gotten this off on them.
Sure. The motion is to punish this to offer a civil penalty to offer a civil penalty to this respondent of $1,000 for failure to exercise reasonable skill and care. That's the motion.
And to open a case against the principal broker, right?
Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Was offered by Mr. Begley, seconded by Mr. Ferris. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Number 13, I pulled that one. And the only question I have is that it doesn't say in the narrative what the letter of warning is going to be about.
If they are acting as a property manager, that they need to have a license to do.
Statute and rules will all be in that letter of warning as well.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I had.
I move to accept council's recommendation for case number 13.
Motion to accept council's recommendation for case number 13, seconded by Ms. Torbett. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion carries unanimously. Case number 15. Ms. Tucker.
I pulled number 15. My concern was there was no notification that there was not any earnest money up until what? The earnest money was supposed to be deposited within 5 days with the title company. This agent did not check to find out whether or not the earnest money was deposited. I just think that that's not right.
I pulled this one also, and I wondered, let me think here just a second. How was the proof supposed to be supplied on the contract? On the contract, how is the proof of earnest money supposed to be supplied? Does it say bank letter? Does it say cashier's check? Does it say anything on that? And I'm confused, was there a notification where it changed from cash to a loan in your paperwork?
Not a notification that I was able to regarding their earnest. Deposit of
And say,
I check or
okay.
found it noted in his client informed deposited within the title company had a different property that the client had closed on that same month. They were notified by the title company that they never in fact received their earnest money for this property on the same date that the seller's agent was notified that the earnest money was not for that property.
So the agent did check on the earnest money and was told that it was there, but then found out that there was a miscommunication between the title company.
Within the title company.
Within the title company.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like. It's not exactly clear, but that's what it appears to be.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then my next question, it said, found out that their loan wasn't approved. Am I reading this somewhere? Let's see.
The order of events was they offered to pay cash, and then they didn't have enough cash, so they moved to a loan to try to finance a transaction.
Without notifying their own agent, and then found out right before closing that they did not have the financing they needed to close.
Fine.
But still did not notify their agent until the very last minute that that's what was.
Client didn't tell the agent, and the agent, therefore, I guess, would anybody else. Council's motion was to dismiss. Commissioner Tucker, Commissioner Smith, do you have a motion?
My motion is to go with council's suggestion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Tucker, seconded by Mr. Bagley, to accept council's recommendation on case number 15. Any further discussion?
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
So the buyer's agent found out the day of closing that there was no earnest money.
I don't believe it was the day of closing. I believe it was either a day or so right before closing. It was certainly up to the last minute, but not the day of.
So both agents found out at the same time that there was no earnest money and no closing.
Right.
Because of an error from the title company.
Because of an error from the title company and because of the buyer withholding that information from both of them.
Further discussion. In that case, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Case number 16.
I pulled that one. Did anybody else pull it?
Nope, you're the only one.
Okay. I was concerned about this, that there were some funds that additional funds needed to be paid at closing because the buyer was going to be short $800. Am I reading that correctly?
That's what the complainant alleged.
Yes. So my question would be, obviously we have rules that we can't, as realtors, can't give money to a buyer. So I just wondered if there was anything in writing or any questions that you asked about how that money was going to be transferred, if it was. Although they did say they denied all the allegations, so I just wondered if there was proof that they were supposed to get the money.
Respondent did not provide the closing documents. I wish that they had, because I'd be able to definitively answer your question. However, the respondent did say that they have had ongoing issues with this complainant. They denied that additional money was due at closing. They denied that they ever made any offered a loan money to this person. They denied that they made any referral for any handyman to go over. It was basically not just a strong denial of all the allegations, but that in fact that the complainant has been harassing the respondent to the point that the respondent has contacted their own legal counsel to try to get this harassment to stop.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I make a motion that we accept legal counsel.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Torbett, that we accept council's recommendation for case number 16. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Case number 17 is mine. And that's mine. Okay. So this, I guess this is it's administrative open case against principal broker. So that seems to indicate that there was a civil settlement offered to the affiliate broker earlier.
Correct.
Do we know if that offer has been accepted?
Yes.
It's been accepted. Okay. Very good. All right. In that case, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to accept, please.
I have a motion to accept council's recommendation, seconded by Ms. Tucker, that we accept council's recommendation for case number 17. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Case number 18, that was pulled by Ms. Tucker and myself. Ms. Tucker.
Okay, I was just shocked.
Okay. Cheers.
I guess I was just shocked with the history here of all the advertising violations, and I wondered why we are just doing a $500 civil penalty instead of $1,000.
My concerns were the same.
I would make a motion to fine the respondent $1,000 civil penalty.
We add
Ms. Torbett, Commissioner Torbett.
microphone.
Yes, please.
Can we add advertising education?
There's no separate course on advertising. There is a core course where advertising is covered.
Clearly, they don't seem to understand the advertising rules. So maybe $1,000 penalty, and can I amend that motion to education?
Yeah, let me get it properly recognized, and then we can go from there. So I have a motion by Commissioner Ferris, seconded by Mr. Moffitt, to increase the penalty to $1,000. And now, Ms. Torbett.
Is that a substitute motion or amended
Friendly
motion?
amendment.
Amended motion? Like to amend the motion to also include an education core course? What is that, 12 hours?
The core course is 16 hours?
It's 6.
6 hours, sorry. 6 hours. And it usually accounts towards their license renewal. Well, we typically don't allow them to do that.
Don't count it towards that.
And then you want to give them, 180 days?
Yes.
180 days to complete
Yes.
it? All right, so I will restate the
Not
motion.
to be counted towards.
Their continuing education.
Yes.
I'll restate the motion. But a motion is, as an amendment, that this respondent be offered $1,000 civil penalty and to be required to take the core course within 180 days, and that course is not to be counted towards their continuing education.
Anna, do you want us to do something different? I detect a.
We're just, the amendment, if the Commissioner Ferris, if you're okay with the amendment.
I second that amended motion.
I didn't know if it was an amendment.
That's what I didn't
The
know
motion
either.
or
A substitute motion. It's an amendment to the motion if DJ's okay with it.
I am okay with that. I withdraw my motion and have Stacy have her.
I'd make it a substitute motion, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Tucker, anything else? Any further discussion from anybody? All right, since you're ready to vote, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. I said number 19 is the next case. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought 18 and 19 were related. Are they, or are they separate?
They are.
They're related? All right, so I'll go ahead and accept council's recommendation for case number 19. Or do we need to do that?
I would say the same penalty as.
It's related in that they both are affiliate brokers with the same firm, and it was submitted at the same time by the same complainant, but the respondent in number 19 does not. This would be their first.
I see.
Defense.
I see.
I would.
No, there was not a motion.
I move to accept council's recommendation for case number 19.
I have a motion by Commissioner Ferris, second by Commissioner Smith to accept council's recommendation for case number 19.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
We're in the same office, and they're going to get different penalties. Do we need to have any explanation as to one has so many violations and this one's the first violation, which is why they don't get the same penalty?
I don't think so, because I have an individual with very strict facts. So you're allowed to look at the facts and circumstances when looking at different. That would be my.
Other questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion to accept council's recommendation?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Case number 22. Beth.
Let me look through it just a second. My question was a representation there. Did anybody else pull this one?
Just you.
I had reviewed it over the weekend. I just didn't email it in, so I had it caught my eye as well, Commissioner.
Oh, okay. I know why. It seems that this buyer did not get a chance to counter offer. And then they found out that the respondent purchased the property themselves and relisted it. So I just wondered who they were representing, or were they there as a unrepresented buyer? And I was also curious about, it concerns me when someone makes a full price offer and then someone in our profession goes in and buys it at a different price. I just wondered if that price was a lot different.
Unfortunately, the respondent didn't respond, so we don't have their side of the story. Do you have anything in the record?
Not from the respondent, no, sir. And the complainants also, part of their complaint was that they did have an agent, but that agent was unable to go with them. So they were represented, but they didn't provide any documentation of anything. I don't know what the list price was. I don't know what it was purchased for. I don't even have proof that the did buy the property, which is why I went forward with my recommendation to offer a.
Yeah.
So they have a time frame. Where it says we've given them the civil penalty. Then once we give them that, then they should respond or not respond, Or if they do respond, could this come back before us again?
While they're discussing,
So
Sure.
we usually
Go ahead.
we open complaints if there's. So we don't typically reopen complaints unless there's additional information.
Oh.
So, but typically when we're looking at additional information, the additional information is almost always on the complainant side, because we're not usually bringing the complaint back for the respondent to give them another opportunity to respond to the complaint, because we've already assessed them the civil penalty, right, for failure to respond. And we can assess a civil penalty for a licensee for failure to respond because they're required to, but we can't necessarily force them to respond to the complaint, if that makes sense. So I don't know if we would get that additional information here that we're looking for.
So
If they respond after we've given them a civil penalty for not responding, they still are obligated to the civil penalty for not responding because they didn't respond by a certain date.
Right. I mean, they can respond after the fact, and sometimes people do respond after the fact, but we usually don't bring those back to the commission because that we would be bringing a lot of complaints after the fact, right? They're like, well, here's my response now. I don't want to pay $1,000.
I have 3 of those this week. If you'd like,
Right. So unless you want us to bring those back, so that's kind of the situation where we are here.
Question.
Commissioner Wynn.
So stated another way, could someone pay the $1,000 and not respond? Because if they did respond, it could be worse. Meaning $1,000 penalty for failure to respond. I said, fine, I'll pay the $1,000, and because I don't want to respond, and if I did, it could be worse. So they're using that lack of response as a out.
Strategy. I mean,
Yes,
they
a
could.
strategy. Yes.
So
They could. That would be a bold move of them, I suppose. But like, I don't know what they're thinking in that instance.
Well, and you're not saying in this instance or on this case. It's just in general you're asking.
In general,
Yes.
in other words, if we find someone $1,000 for lack of response and they pay it, there's nothing we can do, right?
Right. So they pay it, and the complaint is closed at that
Right.
point. Right.
Yes, my thought on this over the weekend when I read it was agreed with the council's recommendation for failure to respond. You've got to respond. And then I wrote down, perhaps deal is on the up and up, though. It's a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. So the buyer had representation. I think I would move to accept council's recommendation.
I have a motion to accept council's recommendation for a $1,000 civil penalty for failure to respond by Commissioner Ferris, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next case is case number. I'm sorry, next case is case 27. I pulled that case. I guess my question is, in terms of practice, do we ever refer cases for ethics complaints to local associations? Have we ever done that? Could we do that? I wanted to know if we ever referred complaints to local associations for ethics complaints, and if that's something should avoid.
I'm not aware of us referring it to a local association because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, membership is optional So I wouldn't know necessarily which association to refer it to and if they're a member of said association.
Our association has a button to tag stuff like this, and they either have to fix it or get fined anytime there's violations in our association, in our MLS. So I think that's kind of taken care of locally.
I don't have any other questions than that. Is there any further discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept Make a motion to accept council's recommendation of a letter of warning.
I have a motion to accept council's recommendation by Commissioner Torbett, seconded by Mr. Ferris. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Case number 33 was pulled by Commissioner Smith and me. Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
These papers, is this what these papers give us?
Yes, I did with you all the in the legal report. It mentions that in the legal report, it mentions that there were text messages between the seller and their agent, who is the respondent, and so I have provided copies of those text messages. The original recommendation was litigation monitoring because I was under the impression that the complainant was moving forward with civil litigation and had already done so. I was then informed after the last meeting that they had not done so and were not going to do so, but they were still, I don't say still, that they were very unhappy with the respondent and would like action taken against their licensure.
Pardon us while we read through this.
I have a question while they're. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. So the complainant,
yes, ma'am,
sold a lot adjacent to their house.
Correct.
But they had questions about where the septic line was before they sold that lot.
Correct.
And they didn't get a survey till after they sold the lot, or in the midst of closing. When was the survey done?
Survey was obtained by the buyer after the sale was completed.
No, the seller had asked about that.
Seller asked about putting a, they called it a waiver.
They didn't know where the lines were.
They didn't know where the line.
So they sold the lot and it has the lines going through that lot? I'm just still trying to figure out exactly what the problem is with all this. I
think the seller's saying they asked for protection legally with this waiver, and the buyer and the agent that was representing them said you're fine or whatever, didn't do what they were supposed to. And now the buyer's coming back on the seller, and they're like, well, we asked for a waiver. Is that correct?
Buyer has not come back on the seller. The seller is now saying that they cannot sell their house for what they were going to sell it for, or even perhaps sell it at all, because these septic lines go under the parcel that they sold, and that they asked for a waiver. The agent says that we did a notification and provided a copy of a notification that the septic lines were believed to be under the seller's lot that they were keeping, but that they could not guarantee that part of the septic lines may go under the buyer's property.
On this complaint, it says the complainants were the seller of the property. So they've already sold the property, right?
Correct.
So it's that seller is gone. They're not trying to sell the property anymore, right?
They are alleging that they can't sell the property.
I thought they already sold the property.
The house that
They
the
can't
home
sell
that they
the
still
lot
own.
with their house on it.
Because yeah.
So how hard is it to get an easement after the fact? They're just being proactive to say they need an easement, they want to buy it back. It's kind of hard to follow everything that's going on here.
There was a lot of back and forth. Yes, ma'am. So it was complicated. And again, which is why I partially
I appreciate these copies.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can go ahead. Sorry.
The text messages imply that they said renegotiate the contract, which is obviously not possible because the contract closed in June. The sale for that property closed in June. They wanted the buyer to sell back part of the property or an easement for that part of the property at the expense of the respondent. And I don't remember what the third, but the
gifting option.
But apparently, communication between the buyer and the complainant have broken down, and they are not communicating anymore. So I don't know that a sale back or an easement is going to be as easy as it might have been at one point.
When I first read this, I thought that it sounded like and seemed like the complainant knew or considered that this was a problem.
I mean, certainly asked for a septic waiver at closing and prior to closing and at closing. It also seems like from the record that they didn't receive the signed closing documents or the waiver from the seller. I don't know how they closed without receiving all the documents, but like I said.
Jeff, I don't understand how a waiver would help them. I mean, you can't get a waiver to have something on somebody else's land.
I hadn't heard of that either, but, I mean, has this been an issue for any transactions that, I'm wondering where the septic lines are?
I guess my question is, can you not just have put the easement in the buy an easement, or can you just put the easement in the contract?
Have to have it surveyed.
They could have recorded this easement if they had gotten all the information, but they wouldn't have to buy it. Like, I don't understand, how do you go back after the fact and buy an easement? You can't buy an easement, can you? You can buy the land.
Yes, you can buy an easement. They can charge them
for
for the easement if they wanted to. But if it was discovered before closing, the proper thing would have been to do would be go ahead and have it surveyed and have an easement that property. So I don't know when the discovery was for that respondent.
So when the easement, when they were surveying the septic lines, that survey should have generated the exact position of these survey lines, and they should have discovered where they were at the time.
But that's after
But
the
that's
fact.
after the fact? They did the
After the
survey?
fact.
The complainant seller did not do a survey
Prior to
closing.
Right.
The buyer of the parcel did in November.
the respondent has to, the complainant has to take some responsibility. If they had these concerns, they should have located that septic tank and had a survey, in my opinion.
I agree with Commissioner Begley. I'm also not just saying, hey, the respondent was not at fault here. I'd written down when I first reviewed it that a letter of warning at minimum for reasonable skill and care, or to better practice reasonable skill and care, and ought to go out to the respondent.
My biggest concern was a forged notification. If there's
Right.
any validity to that.
The complainants let me back up for a second. The complainants are using the word waiver. The respondent used the word notification, and there was a notification form. I believe there's a fundamental notation about what notification versus waiver is. There was a notification of the septic lines may go under this other parcel. We don't believe they do, but they might.
And that was done in July?
Respondent is saying, here, I have this notification form that you both e-signed.
Okay.
The complainants are saying that's the document that was forged. I asked for a criminal complaint or if they had filed a police report and never received confirmation of that. So right now it's an allegation. They're saying that the respondent forged that form once respondent realized they may be in trouble because of what happened.
Did you see that form?
Yes, ma'am.
Do the dates coincide with what needs to be a date signed?
Does, but as I'm sitting here right now, let me pull it up and confirm for you all.
Sorry, Stacey, but when the text messages show that it appears that the complainant asks on July 25th of last year, should we add a disclosure of septic lines in that we think we do not encroach via measurements, however, not being present when work done, not 100% sure. The respondent, it appears, based on this text sheet that's been provided to us, says, yes, we could. I will get that worked up. That was 3 minutes later. The next day, it appears that the complainant responds and says, got it. Can it be rephrased to say, seller on such, I don't know, blacked out, advises the buyer. So they're trying to, the complainant is at the table trying to disclose what they can disclose. I just think like the complainant was engaged. If you have concerns, it's not the respondent's fault.
So you asked about the notification form, the date that text message that you just referenced, July 26th.
Yes.
The notification form is dated and has the complainant's e-signature the very next day, and it is the identical language to what's in that text.
Okay.
Seller advises buyer.
Until I'm shown something otherwise, I don't think that the respondent forged the seller's signature. Anybody have any thoughts about?
Did you ever see a drawing?
Yes. Dated 1993. And it's from the original, I guess, layout of the home on the property and where the
Septic line went?
Correct.
So does a septic line go, it must go across from the house, across a corner of a property, and then the septic itself is on their property?
I'm not a septic tank surveyor, but that's what it appears to be.
Is this drawing a survey or is it just a drawing done by the previous owner?
It's a drawing that was completed as part of the Tennessee Department of Health and Environment Certificate of Completion of Subsurface Sewage Disposal System.
But they had access to that in November. They didn't have access to that before?
It was attached to the notification form that the complainant is saying they never saw that it was forged. in July. Yes.
Does that septic layout show it crossing a property line?
And I'm not sure. It looks like there's, as the complainants stated, there's 2 parcels, and so what's noted on this graph paper is front house. So I'm assuming there's also a back house and a back lot.
And that probably was done prior to the property being divided.
Probably.
We can't assume there's a back house. I think that could be interpreted as the front of the house.
I'm assuming there's identifying information on that drawing that we can't see.
As the date, and it's the same address as it is for that property. But yes, there is additional identifying information.
Would you like someone from here to look at that and then abstain from the vote? Just to kind of get a clear definition.
I don't know that we need to re-engineer this thing. I mean, my thought is that the complainant, it says they can't sell their home without buying the land back. They could always reroute their sewer line and hook it, or their septic line and hook it into the tank. They just don't want to spend the money to do it. They think it's cheaper, probably, to try to get this easement that they messed up on.
It would have been possibly easier to have this all figured out before you sold 2 adjoining lots, but it could still be not that bad. It could be costly. It could be impossible. If it's in Williamson County, it might be very challenging.
So my question is, based on these text messages, how much culpability does the agent have to recommend to get the survey if the seller clearly was concerned and expressed their concern? What's the agent's responsibility there?
I haven't had a transaction where I'm selling 2 adjoining lots, but I have to think that if there's a question about the layout of the septic tank, I would want to be precise. Commissioner Ferris mentioned letter of warning for failure to exercise reasonable skill and care. If you want to make that a motion, we can consider it and see how the vote goes.
And Stacy, that's the question at hand. To what degree is the respondent culpable? And if you're the complainant, it's all their fault. In my chair, I think they could be more. They could perhaps advise. This will not be. They won't ever not advise again about it, probably. So I don't know that it's entirely their fault, but that's why I was thinking a letter of warning.
We're always careful as agents to say we're not experts
Right.
beyond real estate transactions. Be the source of the source, not the source. The only step that I think would have prevented this is to offer that precise survey inspection prior to closing. That would have been.
That's what I would think if your client is saying, hey, I'm not sure.
Like
original draw?
Yes.
1990.
93. So what it sounds like to me, a previous owner might have added on to field lines or done something differently that particular seller didn't know about. And I don't know how they found out, but at some point in time, something might have been modified to that system and they just didn't have a record of it.
I will note that, and I did put this in the report, but the respondent stated that they did tell the seller, if you have concerns, you do need to either contact the septic company that you're currently contracted with and have them tell you where the lines are, or get a survey done. And
Stacy, so to your point, somebody has to pay for those inspections. So if the seller says, I'm not paying $1,000 for a septic and a survey right now, then, the agent has told them, I recommend this or that. But if they don't want to pay for it, radon, septic surveys, all this stuff, then it's their choice. And I'll also say it's hard without the correct drawing to locate even a survey is an above ground location.
Right.
So to find even if you did a survey, I don't think anybody, except maybe the guy that put the septic tank in, knows exactly where the lines end and start and run. So
you got to put cameras in there. Yeah, well, you can locate it.
You can locate it on
that's
sewer, but septic's
right.
tough, probably. Expensive, very expensive to get cameras.
Isn't the issue here is whether or not the real estate agent acted properly? I mean,
So it sounds like the agent's advice was to have the inspection done, but the buyer chose not to do it.
That was the respondent's response. Yes.
Then I make a motion that we accept council's recommendation.
There is no recommendation, is there?
There was not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the complainant says that the agent never advised to get the survey. The agent says they did advise and the complainant chose not to. So that's a he said, she said.
But he got a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Gwynn,
that we dismiss.
is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Gwynn to dismiss this complaint, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. All right. Good job, everybody. This is 30. Sorry, the next case to be pulled was case 34. I did pull that one. Anybody else? Commissioner Smith, you did as well? Go ahead. I'll wait for you, Commissioner Smith.
I just had a question. Dismiss an open administrative complaint against principal broker failure to supervise. Is that because of advertising?
Yes.
Okay.
Only because they had advertising violation.
Okay.
That's why I suggest.
Okay. Make a motion that agree with the recommendation.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Smith to accept council's recommendation, seconded by Mr. Moffitt. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Next case is 35. And I think that one's just me. That one's just me. Okay. This one.
This is the one where they were encouraged to accept the offer, but had another offer come in the next day, and the agent didn't realize that there was another person looking at the property, and then they made a cash offer for more money.
It's easy to do. They made a mistake. I would move to accept council's recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion to accept council's recommendation, seconded by Mr. Gwynn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Case number 38 is me again. This one looks like there was another instance of there was a civil penalty offered for $1,000 for unlicensed activity. And I'm assuming you didn't do the $1,000 for failure to respond because they're not licensed.
Correct.
Okay.
The unlicensed.
Okay. All right.
I move to accept council's recommendation.
I have a motion by Commissioner Ferris to accept council's recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Tucker. All those in favor of the motion vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Case number 44. Commissioner Smith.
Okay, on this one, I just had a question. because it says the respondent included a picture of the sign, but council was unable to read anything on the sign. Do you ever ask for them to resubmit evidence, or you just go with their first?
You can always ask them to resubmit things. In this situation, I think because I couldn't, like, there was no like actual allegations that I could like do anything with.
Okay.
The recommendation was probably going to be the same with or without the picture.
Also, is anonymous.
Oh,
Is the sign in their home or outside of their? Where does the sign have to be to announce that it's an office?
It's like a home office essentially, and so what it looked like based off the picture, like the picture was like taken from a street view, and it looked like from the front window, and all I could really see is the
It's like
outline of
in
it.
the window.
Just in the window is where
So
it
it
looked
could
like.
be put up in the window real quick, taken back down out of the window.
It could have been. Didn't have enough.
but again, it's
Based off the
anonymous.
respondent.
Again, it was anonymous.
Yes, and based off what the respondent said, I can only really go off what they told me.
Make a motion, we accept council's recommendation.
I have a motion by Commissioner Smith to accept council's recommendation in case number 44, seconded by Mr. Moffett. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Case number 58, Commissioner Smith.
Okay, it says respondent did not submit a response. So do we do a penalty for that?
There is a penalty for that, up to $1,000 for failing to respond within the 10 days.
I don't think we have that on our form.
No, yeah, it wasn't on the recommendation. The only reason I did not recommend that is because the complaint was just against a person with a first name, no last name. It wasn't a specific agent. And so although like they received it and we could assess that,
And then it says
there
that
just wasn't enough.
then it said that the complainant did not provide anything additional and asked that the complaint be dropped because they, quote, don't have time to address this. So,
And you may
nor
have-
do I. I move to accept council's recommendation.
Motion to accept council's recommendation by Mr. Ferris, seconded by Mr. Begley,
And can we repeat council's recommendation?
to dismiss.
Okay.
I guess my question is, the complaint says type of license of real estate firm and not a specific licensee. So can a penalty be assessed against the firm for failure to respond, or does it have to be an individual?
It's still a through a firm. Typically, it's a that sense. It says a licensee is required to respond to a complaint. Firm is licensed.
Do you want to stand with the motion, or is the commissioners want to maybe do something different?
I think,
And with the motion,
yeah,
and it doesn't want to and it stop it. That's just my opinion.
yeah, I'm not of the mind to find this firm for not responding in this instance. That's within our prerogative as the commission. We have done that previously in this meeting for not responding, but in this instance, I don't feel led to support that.
My only rebuttal is that I think we can't really adjudicate these cases if we don't get a response from the accused or the respondent. And the fact that the complainant doesn't want to pursue it doesn't mean that the firm didn't violate our rules or our statute. And not responding within a period of time is a violation of our rules and our statute. So I'm kind of torn between dismissing this case without saying it's okay you didn't respond to us, we're going to go ahead and dismiss the case. I don't feel like we should say okay to that.
I see your point.
All right, we got a motion. Let's go ahead and vote and see how everybody feels. All those in favor of the motion.
Hold on. I mean, do you want? Let's see.
Motion is to.
Right, but we could also. We could with that motion we could issue a civil penalty to the firm for not responding, based on what Jeff just said. I mean, the respondent, even if they had said this is a scam on me, they should have responded based on how we conduct business in the state of Tennessee with regards to our licenses. So I will amend my motion to issue a civil penalty in the amount of $500 for not responding. So the new motion will read, I move to accept counsel's recommendation regarding the complaint and dismissing the complaint and issue a civil penalty of $500 to the respondent for failure to respond.
Second.
Oh, the complaint is, at least the way counsel has written it, the complaint is against the real estate firm. So if we accept counsel's recommendation to dismiss, then the case is closed. And dismiss or assess the civil penalty.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So I move for a civil penalty of $500 to be fined against the respondent for failure to respond.
I have a question. Need a second for.
Take one.
Second it. I can ask them.
So the new recommendation is, the new motion by Commissioner Ferris is to assign the respondent a $500 civil penalty for failure to respond. Second by Commissioner Torbett. Commissioner Torbett, go ahead.
So when you submit this to the respondent, what does the complaint look like that they're responding to? Because if the complainant referred to a text message but don't have a copy of the text message and don't exactly know who sent it, so if that's what the respondent sees, then they may say this is ridiculous, I'm not going to respond. I'm just curious, what do you present to the respondent to get a response?
They get the original complaint. Even that there were text messages, they would have been able to see that and respond to the allegations against them. But since they didn't really have anything to respond with, like there's no text messages or anything like that, they would have just received the original complaint.
They would have seen that there was a complaint, but there's really no proof in the complaint.
Correct.
Basically.
They would have seen that. Yes.
But there was no response that you received.
I just think that goes against my. Would you mind turning your microphone on, Anna? I didn't hear that. I just feel bad about finding the firm when it's tough enough to do a business and run things, and you've got this complainant who's complained, and now they've withdrawn their complaint, and now we've talked about it 10 minutes, and I get the rules that they need to respond, so I withdraw my motion to find
It's a statute. Anna muttered without her microphone.
Yeah,
Not a rule.
turn it on next time so the other board members can hear kindly.
I'm torn too because I can see why they wouldn't respond because
Anybody
there's
else
no
got any
any There's
thoughts?
really no complaint, which is why they probably didn't respond because they thought
Well,
this is
since
insane.
you were asking my opinion, I'll chime in and just say, I mean, we get frivolous complaints all the time. And I think one of the things that we do want is for people to respond. We were just talking about a couple of complaints ago where people, maybe it was the decision not to respond to a complaint for strategy purposes because maybe, it would end up helping you or hurting you more in the other process. But unfortunately, the statute says you shall submit a response to the commission within 10 days. And even if we've received one sentence, like responses saying like, this is not true, or this is complete whatever. So like that's a response to us. So if we're going to apply the rules to everyone, I think that we should. That's all I have to say.
So
The respondent is the firm.
And I also know that like the complainant, states that they don't want to respond to it. But even when someone withdraws their complaint, that really doesn't mean much of anything to me, because we oftentimes, if someone withdraws the complaint, that doesn't mean that we're going to stop looking at the complaint, because I don't know why the individual has withdrawn the complaint. Has the individual withdrawn the complaint because they've received external pressures to withdraw that complaint? So there may be other reasons for us to still look at it. Now, unfortunately, that's not the case here, but it's not our normal process to just dismiss or completely disregard something because the complainant has decided to withdraw the complaint. But we will provide that information and let you make that determination.
We've just had him $100.
I want to do more than that. I agree. I think if we have a rule that you respond, statute, that you respond, then I think you need to respond.
And as the lawyers know, words have meaning. It says you shall, not you may.
I've got a question, Anna. A response would be, I have no response, correct?
Correct.
So anybody can always say, I have no response, and that's a response. That's so easy.
And we don't get a second bite at the apple either.
Yep.
So if that's what they say, that's their response. So the fact that we got nothing and it's affirmed as a principal broker there, somebody has got that license and somebody's the principal broker. And when this lands on their desk, they're going to say, what is this?
So what is our motion?
Our motion is to assess a $500 civil penalty.
I withdrew my motion, so Commissioner Smith,
I
if
see.
you have a motion.
Is there a new
So
motion?
you withdrew your motion to dismiss?
You did.
I withdrew my motion to fine them $500, so we're open for a new motion.
There is the floor is open for a new motion.
I'll make that motion to fine them $500. Civil penalty. That's the civil dollars for failure. With an encouragement to respond, no matter what your response is.
Say something.
I have no response.
All right. So the new motion, or the repeated motion,
DJ's motion.
is
I just resurrected it.
Sounds better for me.
is to assess this respondent a $500 civil penalty for failure to respond, seconded by Commissioner Moffitt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
That motion carries 8-1. All right. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for your work on the legal consent agenda. I know that was a lot. I appreciate it.
I've got one quick question of counsel.
Go ahead.
There were two cases. We talked about one of them. There's an 038 and 51 where we're fining non-brokers or non-licensees. What happens when y'all do that? Do you follow up? Do you have to turn it over to your collection group? We don't have an ability to get a judgment or anything like that, right? I mean, if somebody is fined $1,000 that's not a licensee and they throw it in the trash can, I mean, is it that's it?
That's not it. We can go forward and have a contested case hearing, and if they don't show up, it's a default. If they then choose not to, it's a default judgment against them for whatever the commission, or if it's just the ALJ presiding alone, whatever the ALJ decides is the appropriate penalty.
Okay.
And then we move forward with that, with the order from the Secretary of State's office saying you now owe this money as a civil penalty. If they choose not to pay, then we send it over to the Attorney General's office, and they move forward with collection efforts.
But something is not going to go away.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Perfect.
And if they ever do apply for a license, that's there also.
Correct.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, the next item on the agenda is to talk about meeting dates for 2024. Assuming Ms. Baker has proposed dates for us.
Yes, if you look on your iPad, you should see those dates. It should be the very last file on your iPads. I've also believe they were presented to you last meeting as well.
What does 1B mean? That was my question.
That is
August
the
1B
conference
and-
room right next door to this one. So it's right
so
there.
It's just a different room.
Yes, it's in a different conference room. Yes.
This has been sent to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
know it was given to us, but has it been sent to us?
that I can't confirm, but I can send the.
Send it?
Yeah, I can resend these so you can add these to your calendar.
It was part of the email that went out for the meeting. So it's an
Okay.
attachment. It's one of the last ones, so it's buried down at the end.
I was commanded by my wife to stay away from April 6th, so you've done that for me. Thank you.
I'm glad that we could assist her.
A reason was not given; it was a command. Stay away from April 6th. So.
I understand.
Was it a statute?
In my house, yes, it is. You shall stay away from April 6th. Yes.
So if everyone is in agreement with these dates, we would love to have a motion in a second. So that way, not only can we reserve the room, but we are also able to post these on our website as well for all licensees and the general public. Mr. excuse me, Mr. Ferris.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to just put up a thought to the board and to the director and everybody at the Department of Commerce, if it might make sense to consider doing meetings every other month.
We are open to recommendations. We are of the opinion that if the commission would like to have meetings every other month, we could gladly accommodate that. So that would mean we would have 4 here in Nashville and then 1 in East Tennessee and 1 in West Tennessee.
My question would be for the staff, and how would the load be too difficult if we met every other month? Taking July off hasn't seemed to be that big of a problem. I haven't noticed that August was a crazy meeting.
Having been enrolled 2 weeks, I do believe the staff could accommodate every other month. I do want to defer to legal because that means your legal report would be extra lengthy on those months that since we're moving every other month and not monthly.
Well, yeah, and my question would be too, people that have informal appearances would have to wait longer to apply for their license, which would be a concern.
I do want to point out the dates that are selected would be on the website. We would get those on the website this month, and so they could plan accordingly. And then in the event of an emergency, like what was done earlier this year, there could be an emergency meeting if something grew to the level that an emergency meeting was needed.
I think, my only issue would be if we do adopt the every other month process. I know I would benefit from having additional time to review materials. If we could get those materials instead of the Thursday before the meeting, maybe the Wednesday or the Tuesday before the meeting. Helpful.
I can work with staff on that to get you guys your meeting packet 7 to 10 days prior to the meeting.
Here's another question. Driving a fart. There's a likelihood that the meeting would be a considerably longer meeting, since it would basically be twice the amount of cases, which could possibly put us here, those of us that have to drive far, put us here for 2 nights instead of 1 night. So it's kind of for me anyway, it's like 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, because I would be spending the same amount of nights here, just maybe less driving. So I don't know. That's a tough call for me, because it's easier to be gone 1 night than 2, which I'm thinking I don't want to leave Nashville at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, which might be the case if the meetings were that long.
I don't know if the commission would like to entertain this, but we could meet in January and February. And then we can see in April if we did not meet in March, what April would look like if we were not to meet in March, and to see if the commission thinks that is too much of a load. We are open to suggestions. We don't. We will do whatever the commission pleases, but we do see that having you guys in every other month would be beneficial, not only for staff, but for those driving in and out as well.
And what are other boards doing?
There are boards that meet quarterly. They don't have as much of a heavy lift as you guys do, but there are boards that meet quarterly. So they meet only 4 times a year. And then it is, I can't remember if it's a rule or a statute, but we are required to meet in East Tennessee as well as West Tennessee once a year.
A statute.
Statute.
So if you have conflicts, which I have one next year in May, if that month that you have a conflict just so happens that it's not a month that we're meeting, well, that would be good. I'm concerned about, missing a month, missing a meeting, missing another meeting because of a conflict in a specific month that there may or may not be a meeting, that there is a meeting. See what I'm saying? Or,
yeah, you'd miss a lot if you missed a meeting. And we only have 6 meetings.
Right. The percentage of miss is, 1 out of 10 or whatever it is versus 1 out of 5.
Commissioners aren't graded on how many meetings they
I know
attend.
that. Right.
So if you have a conflict.
I believe there is a rule that they can only miss X amount of meetings. I don't know that specific number.
It was like half the meetings.
Yeah, you're
It's a
supposed
large
to
number.
you're supposed to attend at least 50% of the meeting.
So out of a 6 in a year, you got to go to 3.
I don't travel near as far as some others do, but I do travel a couple of hours. And I like your idea of meeting January, February, and let's see where we are. To make a decision right now and say, let's just change it to meeting every other month, I'm not sure I'm comfortable doing that right now.
So if the commission would like to entertain putting on our calendar January, February, April, May, June, August, September, October, and December, we can do that. And then we can revisit this discussion in either the May or June meeting if there are other meetings that want to be removed from the calendar.
And on the legal and consent agenda today, there was 64 cases.
50,
to 60.
Is it 58? 56? 67 cases.
Oh, Price is Right rules. Okay. So, you're looking at that every other month, you're going to have 140 cases.
Approximately. That's a good guesstimation.
Or more. And we pulled a bunch this month, but we don't always pull a bunch.
Also early today, and we typically
today.
are 11:30 or so getting out.
Chairman.
Well, I will say too, the cases, when you have 60 cases and you're reading through the 60 cases, for me, after about case 20, respondent, complainant, all of that starts running all together.
Yeah.
I'm concerned if we have 150 cases that by the time you get to 100, you're not going to know your own name.
But we have had cases where we've had 100 cases or more. I've been in the meetings. So we're like this month. But you could end up with 100 next month. You don't ever know.
So I guess, is it also seasonal? Like, are there going to be months where we're going to have a high number of cases versus other months, or is it just whatever comes in? And
I think the only thing that's seasonal is E&O insurance.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Which is every other year, as you all very well know.
So you were saying the schedule as we have it, but take March off and possibly November?
Yes. Well, I picked those 2 months because January session begins. And I'm not sure what the commission is going to decide to do in December of this year. And then February, I did not want to disturb that meeting per se because there is a Tennessee Realtors Convention, if I'm not mistaken, around that time. As well as a day on the Hill. So hopefully it would benefit licensees that wanted to receive continuing education time to attend this meeting as part of their Tennessee Realtors Convention experience here in February. And so that's why I suggested those months.
Or maybe we can do the trial a little bit earlier, have our December meeting, and skip January since February is such a short month. We can meet. I'm sorry. We can
skip January.
Skip January and meet in February since that's such a short month. And that'll give us a nice approximation of what 2 months worth of work would look like.
You are correct, but I've also observed that the commission tends to skip December more so than January. That's what they've done in the past.
I'm also concerned about skipping it and then having a long meeting in February because the commission is usually asked to participate in Tennessee Realtors. Yeah, we'd have to be there right after lunch, and we can't do a long meeting and be there at lunch right after lunch at the same time.
I understand, which would be why we probably should not skip January.
In March is fun.
Spring break season.
Oh, nobody asked you to do that. Okay.
So if we're doing that trial early in the year, I understand. Doing the trial early in the year, I understand. We're testing out March, right? We're going to skip March.
Yes, we would be testing this out in April to see the level and what the load is.
And you kept the schedule until November, and you skipped November again. Is that right?
Correct. But if we skip November, I hope the commission would agree then to meet in December.
Early in this conversation, somebody asked about legal. We haven't heard from legal. Could you turn your mic on, please?
Yes. Hi. What would you like to know?
Feel like the load is going to be okay? You guys handle that?
It really just depends. I mean, like we had today, we have 67 cases. And we can start, like we can go ahead and start and see what it looks like. And it's very mercurial on how many complaints that we get. So I would rather begin starting out with more meetings with us having January and February, and then see what's going on in March. Especially since I know that we do have a lot of cases that we will want to set for hearing. Because we've got some things that have, we've got like a caseload that we want to set. So we'll adjust accordingly to the schedule. So like if we're keeping the rest of the schedule for this year together, we can make adjustments so we make sure that we're hitting our numbers correctly for next year.
Well, there's a clock ticking for when a complaint is filed and how many days we have to adjudicate and resolve. So are you making adjustments in the back to make sure that we're meeting those deadlines, or?
Right. We will have a meeting and we'll talk about it now, but we've got like a couple of months out to do some planning and we can figure it out. But like so far, the thing we need to worry about is March. So we'll take it from there.
All right. So my understanding is that if there's going to be a motion for this, is that the motion is for this commission to meet January and February of 2024, skip the March meeting, and then meet again in April.
That is correct. I think it would be in the commission's best interest also to set the meetings and then cancel them as needed. This will allow us proper planning because we do need to reserve rooms and things of that nature. It's easier to cancel a meeting than it is to add a meeting, which is why here we are in September of 2023 and we're trying to plan 2024.
How far out do they have to be canceled? 30 days?
I believe that is correct.
Right. So I would go ahead and, schedule.
Adopt the calendar.
schedule the calendar, and then we can cancel meetings as necessary. So I think
So the only one we would technically be canceling, which we can't cancel it because y'all haven't voted on it yet, would be March's meeting,
And possibly November.
possibly November.
But right now, you just need us to adopt the calendar as proposed, or if
No, we would need to adopt the calendar for January, February, April, May, June, August, September, October, November, and December.
you don't even want the March date. You just want to cancel that meeting now, or as we approach it.
If that's the commission's will to do so, to test going to every other month, I think that would be the best manner to test how that would impact the commission and the length of the commission meetings.
Okay, so if we say that we're going to cancel the March meeting now, then does that deprive you of a chance of having a meeting in March if we need one?
It would.
Okay.
But if something were to present itself where the commission needed to meet, of course, we could call an emergency meeting as we've done in the past.
I have a question. Are we doing this for the benefit of staff, or are we doing it for the benefit of the commission?
I think it's all of the above.
Then I have a question for those that travel the furthest. What's your opinion?
I think we ought to do this test that we're talking about, but in the meantime, I'd make a motion to accept the calendar as is.
So you want to include the March meeting,
Sure.
and
Why
have the
not?
opportunity to cancel it at a future date.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
Okay. All right,
We
so
would need to cancel it. If we
In
want to
January.
cancel it, we could
Got a
cancel
lot
it
of
at
time
the
to
January
cancel.
meeting
Yeah.
or the February meeting. Maybe not, because February's the 19th and the March
You
is
got a
12th,
motion?
so that's not 30
Anybody
days.
second that?
I think John did.
So we got a motion to schedule the meeting to accept council.
Accept the calendar as is.
Set the calendar as proposed, including the March meeting and including the November meeting, with latitude to cancel at a future date. That was proposed by Commissioner Gwynn, seconded by Mr. Moffitt. Does that sound right to everybody?
Sounds right to me.
No further discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Beckley.
So, and I like the idea. I am one of the folks that drive the furthest, but in fairness, if somebody wanted to get their license on February the 22nd, they are going to be pushed till April 12th before they even get any kind of
That was my
indication.
concern. What's a reasonable?
So if we remember from my very important PowerPoint, to notice a meeting, what's required is adequate notice. And adequate notice is not defined by statute or rule. And so the 30-day time frame would be ideal, but it is not required. So if it became February and we decided we wanted to cancel the March meeting and it was less than 30 days, that would be okay.
So how people that have these informal appearances,
right?
How long once they send that in? Like they send it in and it's immediately the next meeting?
My understanding, and Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong, is Aaron has to work with them to make sure he schedules all of their paperwork, to make sure they have the court documents for you, the application for decision, and the principal broker's recommendation, to make sure all of that is prepared and ready for you. And so we want to make sure we have all of those documents. And then once that's ready, that individual will be placed on the commission's calendar. And so while there may be an extended period of time, the only other board that meets every single month is the funeral board. Our other boards do meet quarterly. So individuals do occasionally have to meet, get a permission from their boards to obtain licensure. And so those boards that do meet quarterly, there is a little bit of time. So if an individual has to wait an extra month, it's not ideal, but I would not necessarily think it would be like an extreme burden, because sometimes we do have to roll an individual over to the next month if we don't have all of their paperwork.
I mean, if you,
Example of that is something that happened this month. Someone didn't have what was necessary to present before you,
Right.
and so the informal agenda was changed.
first applicant we had today started working on it in June. So,
So it
it's
can
a 3
take
month
time.
lead time.
It
Yeah.
can take time. And so we're on their schedule and they're on our schedule too. So it's a two-way street.
Think about.
We did vote.
Just need to adjourn unless there's anything else going
Right,
on.
yeah,
This is
and-
early.
I would like to just make an announcement. The next meeting will be in Chattanooga. If for some reason you are unable to attend, and I've heard from 2 of you already, please let me know. We want to ensure that we have a quorum in Chattanooga for the next meeting. I believe is October 5th.
Here's make sure you let them know. Other business. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Everybody safe travels.
I heard.
Okay.
Great job. Well, you have a good.